From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. Shareholders target Wall Street banks with new climate resolutions. Webcomic explores Muslim life in America. Beijing COVID spike prompts mass testing, panic buying. Bulldozers in India demolish Muslim neighborhoods. UN approves measure requiring states to justify veto. Jordan's Wadi room desert simulates experience of life on Mars. And our top story tonight. On Tuesday, shareholders at 3 of the largest U.S. banks voted to endorse resolutions urging the companies to stop supporting new fossil fuel development. Shareholders of Citi, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo voted for over 10% to support climate resolutions. According to the Sierra Club, any resolution that receives 10% or more of votes is considered difficult for a company to ignore. The resolutions were filed by the Sierra Club Foundation and other members of the Interfaith Center on Corporate Responsibility. Adele Charmaine of the Sierra Club's fossil-free finance campaign said big banks have a responsibility to address their massive contribution to the climate crisis. They must also protect their shareholders from climate risk by aligning policies with net zero commitments, she added. Employees at Pepsico UK have been fasting to support their Muslim co-workers observing Ramadan. Amongst them is Catherine Westerville, who set strategies to develop employees into effective managers. Westerville and many of her colleagues voluntarily abstained from eating and drinking from dawn until sunset. It was part of a Ramadan Challenge diversity initiative in solidarity with fasting Muslim colleagues during the Islamic holy month. Westerville from Reading, England, doesn't identify with any religion. She fasted for a day and shared her experience on a LinkedIn post that garnered more than 50,000 reactions. Westerville said it creates a much more inclusive environment where people feel comfortable to be themselves. Growing up in Dearborn, Michigan, Huda Fahmi said that the way her schools handled students during Ramadan wasn't great. When Fahmi stumbled upon Aya Khalil's tweets offering comprehensive guidance on accommodating students during the month of fasting, she reached out. Fahmi is the author and illustrator of the webcomic, Yes, I'm Hot in This. She collaborated with Khalil to produce a free poster now available on Fahmi's website. It includes advice on how to handle sports, big assignments, and tests. It also offers tips on how teachers can be accommodating during Ramadan. Fahmi said it's important to think about how to talk to students about Ramadan. With less than 1 week of Ramadan left, Michigan State University Muslim students are still having trouble observing the holy month. Ramadan began on the eve of April 1st and ends the evening of May 1st. MSU freshman Safa Kharain said that Ramadan isn't appreciated or recognized the way other religious holidays are on campus. She also said Muslim students only get about 40 minutes for iftar, the fast-breaking meal before campus cafeterias close at 9 p.m. Those observing Ramadan can pick up pre-packaged breakfast options in their neighborhood dining hall. And there is a special dinner menu in one of the dining halls in each neighborhood. Karian says that the dining halls could give students more than one option per neighborhood. As well, the school offers a small closet as a prayer room, which can be difficult to access for some students due to distance and may be unsafe to get to for night prayers, she said. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos raised concerns after Tesla's CEO Elon Musk struck a $44 billion deal to purchase Twitter. Bezos questioned whether China will lean on Musk's Tesla business to quell criticism of Beijing on the social media platform. The world's second richest man, Bezos, tweeted his concerns over Beijing's potential influence over Twitter several hours after Musk's deal was announced. Musk is currently the world's richest man. Bezos quoted a New York Times reporter's post listing the importance of China to Tesla's business. It said China is the second largest market for the electric car maker, which could provide it leverage over Twitter. Justice for All, a human rights organization, has been asking people to write to Tesla to get out of China. In international news, we will share the updates on the COVID spike in Beijing after this break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Would you help them? Will you help them today? Go online or call this number right now, because hunger hurts and no human being should have to suffer this way. Your gift of $50 can rescue a family from an agonizing life and get them the food they need so desperately. Today could be the day that you save a life by providing a food basket to a family of 4 people for $50. Please, go online or call now.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps, I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness when she regained, and in the morning, and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS. Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No meat!
No justice!
No meat!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned have brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe, and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. In international news today, fears of a hard COVID lockdown sparked panic buying in Beijing on Monday. There were long lines for compulsory mass testing in a large central district of the Chinese capital. Chaoyang, home to over 3 million people, ordered mass testing starting Monday for residents and workers. Warnings of a grim COVID situation there sparked a run on supermarkets overnight as residents rushed to stockpile essentials. China is already trying to contain a wave of infection in Shanghai. Its biggest city has been almost entirely locked down for weeks. Shanghai has struggled to provide fresh fruit to those confined at home, while patients have reported trouble accessing non-COVID medical care. The city reported 51 new COVID deaths on Monday. UN experts blamed the Taliban interim government and the United States for the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan on Monday. The U.S. sanctioned the Taliban regime when it recaptured power last August following American troop withdrawal after 20 years. Al Jazeera reported in August that the U.S. had frozen nearly $9.5 billion in assets belonging to the Afghan central bank. It also stopped shipments of cash to the nation in an effort to keep the Taliban-led government from accessing the money. In February, U.S. President Joe Biden signed an executive order offering help to the Afghan people. UN experts say that women's rights in Afghanistan have been under attack since the Taliban retook Kabul. The regime has implemented policies affecting clothing, transportation, and education of women. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has been ordering demolitions in largely Muslim neighborhoods in India. The Washington Post reports that justice in India is increasingly meted out not by courts but by the long arm of heavy machinery. Local officials in 4 districts governed by the BJP have bulldozed property owned by Muslims. Bulldozers were most recently deployed in the Jahangirpuri neighborhood in the capital city of Delhi. Muslim residents defended a mosque attacked by Hindus waving swords and chanting abuse on April 16th. 4 days later, city officials called in excavators that crushed street stalls, storefronts, and an extension of the mosque in the heavily Muslim neighborhood. BJP leader Kapil Mishra led attacks on Muslims in the 2020 Delhi pogrom. He said that the bulldozer has become a symbol of law and order. Other prominent BJP officials have openly hinted that Muslims were the target of the demolitions. Party spokesman GVL Rao tweeted a meme that JCB, the company that makes most of the bulldozers in India, stood for Jihad Control Board. He later deleted his post. Akar Patel, chair of the Amnesty International India, said that the demolitions were collective punishment reserved for a part of our society, he said. Jordan's Wadi Rum Desert attracts many tourists with its resemblance to the red planet Mars. Hundreds and thousands of visitors explore the desert every year due to its unique natural scenery and historical and cultural importance. The largest valley in Jordan, it simulates an experience of traveling to Mars on Earth. It's also home to the historical ruins of many civilizations in the country's port city of Aqaba. The valley was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2011. On Monday, Russia's top diplomat warned NATO countries He said they are pouring oil on the fire in Ukraine. By continuing to dump advanced weaponry into the war zone, they are heightening the chances of a full-blown nuclear conflict, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Lavrov's comment came after top U.S. officials vowed to provide Ukraine with another $700 million in military aid. In an interview on Russian state television, Lavrov said that the possibility of nuclear war should not be underestimated. Lavrov said that the heavily arming Ukraine against Russia's military invasion, NATO members are in essence going to war with Russia through a proxy. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba responded that Lavrov's comments are part of Moscow's efforts to scare the world off supporting Ukraine. On Tuesday, the 193 members of the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution requiring the 5 permanent Security Council members to justify their use of the veto. The push for reform was revived by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The move aims to make veto holders, the US, China, Russia, France, and Britain, pay a higher political price when vetoing a Security Council resolution. Originally proposed more than 2 years ago, the measure provides for the General Assembly to convene within 10 working days after a veto to debate it. Almost 100 countries, including the United States, Britain, and France, co-sponsored the reform. On Wednesday, Burma's deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi was convicted of one of several corruption charges in a trial held behind closed doors. These were brought against her by the military junta that had overthrew her civilian government last year. A judge in the capital, Nay Pyo Do, sentenced the 76-year-old to 5 years in prison. Suu Kyi was accused of accepting a bribe of $600,000 in cash and 11 kilograms of gold bars from Phyo Min Thein. Thein is a member of her National League for Democracy political party and the former chief minister of Yangon, Burma's largest city. Suu Kyi has been charged with numerous crimes by the military junta and has already been convicted of several other charges. She potentially faces over 100 years in prison if convicted on all charges. Suu Kyi defended the military junta in International Criminal Court on the Rohingya genocide. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment on Britain's Rwanda plan. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. Brothers and sisters, we all watch the Allahu Akbar lady from India. She's amazing, isn't she? She's neither compromising her hijab nor her education. She's standing tall. We must stand with her. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her. But it is not just hijab, brothers and sisters. Indian Muslims are facing genocide.
Genocide that we face in India is not a new phenomenon. India has had several genocides.
They are attacked every day. Even the Indian government admits there has been more than 1,800 organized attacks on Muslims, but they call it riot. 660 people are hanged to death in India, lynched in broad daylight, sometimes just because they were accused of eating beef. Yes, accusation of eating beef can kill a human being in India. We cannot remain silent, can we? Alhamdulillah, OIC has spoken, that is good, but why in the world United Nations is silent? The UN has a responsibility to protect. It has a duty to prevent genocide. Sisters and brothers, we must stand with Indian Muslims and other minorities. We are free, they are not. We are not attacked, they are under attack day and night. Let's do our job. I have signed this UN petition. I ask you to sign it now. Thank you so much.
our Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. To discuss Britain's Rwanda asylum plan, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hena. Well, the Ukrainian refugees are being welcomed in an overwhelming way all around Europe. Other immigrants and refugees are finding it difficult to find a safe place. United Kingdom has just signed an agreement with Rwanda in which asylum seekers will be returned back to Rwanda, not just to come back, but permanently relocated. What is going on here? And with us is someone who knows of the subject matter quite a bit, Brian Endless. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Brian is a president of Hotel Rwanda Rasbaginja Foundation, is Director of African Studies at Loyola University in Chicago. Tell us, what is this deal between UK and Rwanda?
It is something that is a fairly strange deal. It's happening in 1 or 2 other places in the world. Australia is the example. But this is a deal where, when I first heard about it, it seems that it is both a violation of the human rights of the refugees and just against all international refugee law. It makes no sense. The deal, as I understand it, is that for new asylum seekers coming into the United Kingdom, they will be sent to Rwanda to have their paperwork processed. And then they will stay in Rwanda for at least 5 years. This is a little bit uncertain. They may have to stay in Rwanda permanently. The problem with that is Rwanda is an incredibly poor country that violates the human rights, especially the civil and political rights of its citizens. And Rwanda has 1 million plus, some people say 2 million refugees of their own spread around the world who are afraid to come back. So it seems somewhat insane that this deal was even considered.
So essentially, people are being sent back to genocide zones.
Exactly. And Rwanda right now is a place where inside the country there is relative calm. There is certainly a war going on that Rwanda is pushing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But Rwanda has massive issues with human rights. They have absolutely no political freedom, no freedom of speech inside the country, no freedom of association. It's not a democracy in any way. The president has won 3 elections with over 95% of the vote, and it is a totalitarian country.
So who are the asylum seekers? I mean, are they going to send all asylum seekers from Africa back there, or just those people who originally came from Rwanda?
No, it sounds like this could be all asylum seekers or any asylum seekers that they choose. So it's not necessarily just Africans, and very few asylum seekers right now come from Rwanda to the UK each year. There are some political dissidents and people who have had their rights violated, but what the UK is seeing is many more people from Africa coming across the Mediterranean and coming from poor and war-torn countries in other parts of Africa. And it sounds from what we can tell publicly like all of these people could be at risk of being sent back to Rwanda.
What is in it for Rwanda? Why they agreed to welcome these people while they are poor themselves?
For Rwanda, this is unfortunately simple, not so much for the refugees. Rwanda has been promised significant aid by Boris Johnson and by the Home Secretary in the deal that was just signed. Rwanda also continues to get good relations with Britain. And this is one of the things that Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, seeks the most. He doesn't want countries in Europe to look at his human rights record. He wants to be seen as a good partner, whether it's in peacekeeping or refugees or business or anything else, while human rights groups around the world criticize him on a daily, weekly, and yearly basis for his human rights violations. So for them, this is both income and a distraction from those violations.
Do you think, Professor, it is going to be a sort of a trend now that European countries, if somebody from Europe, like Ukrainian situation, God forbid if the same Russian invasion takes place of any other people, they will be welcomed. But when it comes to other asylum seeker, you better be placed somewhere far away.
Unfortunately, I think you're hitting a very important point here. I think there are some elements of bigotry in this policy. I doubt they are going to send white Europeans to an African country, Ukrainians or others who might be refugees. In this policy is probably going to affect African refugees and potentially refugees from the Middle East also much more than it would affect someone who is coming from Europe. And that's a matter of playing to political groups inside the country as much as anything else.
You mentioned it is in violation of many laws. What laws does it violate, and anybody cares for those laws?
That is a good question. Do they care for the laws? Yes, they at least pay lip service to them. The primary law that it is very questionable under is the United Nations Refugees Convention. And that convention guarantees that if an asylum seeker or refugee sets foot on the soil of a country, the United Kingdom, for instance, that they should be allowed to go through a process to determine if they properly should get asylum, and they should then be granted asylum in that country or sent back if that asylum process shows that they are not properly there. I will say in the past, the United Kingdom has been perceived as one of the best countries in Europe on this issue in terms of welcoming refugees and having the best policies for not pushing people out. This is now taking them to the exact opposite end. There's absolutely nothing in the convention that says that you can take an asylum seeker who has come to your country and ship them off to another country to be processed. And in particular, we're dealing with one of the wealthier countries in the world in the United Kingdom and one of the poorest countries in the world in Rwanda. And that is a massive violation of the rights of those refugees, on top of the possibility that they will be subject to a regime that regularly violates human rights conventions.
Can there be any legal processes to stop these type of things? Because, it sounds utterly horrible of people running away, seeking asylum for their safety, and they're being thrown in this situation.
Exactly. And I think you've described it perfectly. It sounds horrible. There is absolutely no question about that. I can't imagine how much worse it would be to have to flee your country as a refugee, to get to the United Kingdom, to believe that you are likely to be safe, and then to be sent to one of the poorest countries in the world. You might know nothing about Rwanda. You might have absolutely no idea what's there. And if you did know, you'd have almost no hope once you got there. The likelihood that these people will be treated well in Rwanda is insanely low. The likelihood that they'll be able, assuming they're granted asylum, that they'll be able to mix into society and lead normal lives in society is insanely low. And even if they did, it's a very poor country to start with and has no opportunity for most of its own people, much less refugees coming in who almost always, unfortunately, have local biases against them.
Professor Endless, is there a international court mechanism to stop this madness? Because if UK is doing, Australia is doing, this is going to be a trend.
Unfortunately, there's really not. The only thing that we are dealing with here is the International Refugees Convention, which does not have a court mechanism. These kinds of things are usually dealt with through multilateral negotiations. In a very technical sense, it could go to the United Nations or the International Court of Justice, but that is incredibly unlikely in these cases. It is more likely that if the world comes to an agreement, and if this continues to be an issue that other countries raise, this is something that could go through the United Nations, and negotiations could take place there. But I doubt it would go through a court mechanism.
So while some people are talking about the nuclear war, among them the Russian foreign minister, and risking World War III, I mean, these type of conversation taking place while the asylum system came into being after the World War II, that protection system. So do you think all these genocides of, protection, genocide, responsibility to protect, all that World War II, post-World War II infrastructure for human rights, do you think all is already collapsed or about to be collapsed?
I don't know that it's completely collapsed, and I have more hope for things like the asylum system than I do for the big powers right now. I think we're seeing a shift that we don't know where it's going to take us between the United States and Europe and Ukraine and Russia. That being said, in terms of asylum, I think that we have actually made some progress, particularly since the end of the Cold War. This was much more difficult during the Cold War. I am not saying it is a well-managed system in any way. It is up to the host countries most of the time to determine how well they want to keep the various treaties that are out there. The treaty system is good, but there is, as you just asked, no enforcement mechanism for it. So it's up to each state if they're going to keep the commitments that they individually made. I don't see a major shift in that system, though. That being said, wars in Syria and famine and conflict in Africa and climate change in Australia and in many other places of the developing world are going to create more refugees as time goes on, and that is absolutely taxing the system. I think that's a lot of what we see now, is that the system is getting harder to upkeep because there just are more refugees.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Endless, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube and Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.